Рус.
Уважаемые гости, уважаемые участники Конгресса, всех просим приходить.
Dear guests, dear participants of the Congress, please be seated. Don't lean over too much because we may look bad in the picture. So when you talk, just keep it straight. So we're not gonna wait for those who are late. So Lizat will catch up with us. We have different speakers. It's finance for people, different investment retail products. I think at the Financial Congress, I think it's the first time that they came up with this topic, so it's the right time has come. But first, I'd like to say hello to everyone. Good day. Hope you're in a good mood. It's a beautiful Almaty. It's been snowing, so uh, I'd like to wish you good mood. We are in pre-holiday season, so for Kazakhstan, November is kind of a dark month, which has become a little darker. But we have a holiday, then it will be New Year's. So we're kind of saying goodbye to this year, looking at the good results. We are hopeful about next year. So today we'll sum up this year. We're celebrating 31st anniversary of our national currency. And today we'll sum up all the products and services provided by the financial sector to the population, to us. And we have to say that our life is transforming so much, has transformed so much. The banking sector has changed for the past 4 years, and the market of retail loans has changed. Insurance sector has always offered services to individuals, but the way it offers its services, it has changed as well. So many topics that we can discuss. I would like to start with the banking sector. Allow me to present the speakers. So we have Sabrshan Berikovich Berkenbaeva, the Executive Director of Kaspi Bank, Linar Amantaeva, representative of First Credit Bureau, KAIS, Oleg Gennadievich Kanin. So yeah, we have to clap. Yeah, Oleg Gennadievich Hanin, Chairman of the Management Board of JSC KSG Life Insurance Company, Komescomer, Shalpan Anabayevna, Chairman of the Board, JC Skybridge Invest, Lizat Ibragimova, she's the Chairman of the Management Board of Joint Stock Company, Odbасы Bank. I think she will get down from the 30th floor. Maybe she decided to take a walk. So, speaking of serious topics, today we have mentioned some numbers on the development of digital banking, of the fintech, and we are almost in the 10th place. More than 83% of transactions come from digital payments. So in The World Bank defines financial inclusion, the accessibility of individuals of legal entities to affordable services that satisfy their needs, transactions, savings, credits, loans, in a responsible manner. The main elements of the financial accessibility is the product, their features, channel of distribution, the coverage of services. According to studies, it's the reserve for sustainability. It's the allows for the economic growth to increase financial inclusivity and access. Given access is one of the main aspects of the development of the financial sector of Kazakhstan until 2030. As a result of the pandemic, the situation has changed with accessibility to funding, when technological innovation, when the remote identification have improved the access to all groups of societies to banking, insurance, brokerage services. According to World Bank for 2022, 81% of the adult population of Kazakhstan have at least one personal account in bank or other financial institution. So we were ranked 55th for the past 2 years, 21 to 23. The amount of premiums has increased, and it's at 1 trillion. It's individuals and legal entities. Amount of retail investors has increased 11 times and exceeded 2.6 million accounts. Kazakhstan now in the top 3 in the financial literacy among CIS countries at 56%. And today we'd like to ask the experts to talk about the current trends of the financial products for the population, how the new generations affect the new solutions, and how they impact the way the services are provided. So I would like to start with the financial sector, the banking sector, where the services are provided, which is clear to us. And today one of the speakers is a representative of the leading group in this direction, who is an obvious example in Kazakhstan, in CIS, and in the global arena. Today, digital ecosystems start to play big and bigger role. We can talk about the close cooperation between marketplace, digital commerce, fintech, and banking field. As it was said by Madina Yarasilna, banks are allowed to buy fintech companies right now. It's certain percentage, at certain ratio from the equity. Kazakhstan has become a leading country in CIS in penetration of cashless payments. From 2019 to 2023, the amount of online banking users has increased 4.6 times. So, Sabirjan, first question to you. Kaspi became the leader in creating this ecosystem where banking products add other services. So, what advantages does it give to retail clients, and how it affects the cooperation with other banks? Thank you. Hello, thank you. First of all, I will start with the words. I'm really inspired by so many people coming here, so many smart people coming out here, and they're gathered here to discuss how to improve the lives of Kazakhstan National Bank, state agencies, Ministry of Finance. Kazakhstan has something to be proud of. And investors, they understand that Kazakhstan is not just a rich country rich with resources, rich with human potential. When we are at the exhibitions abroad, they are very surprised, and we are proud because it happens in Kazakhstan. So the fact that we are in the top 10 is just a number, but in actuality, when Kazakhstani people go abroad, they show what we can do on our applications, and they feel pride. And it's really important because the level that we've achieved with the digitalization, it wouldn't have been possible if we didn't have cooperation between the banks and financial companies, businesses, state agencies, and all the people working in Kazakhstan, because the main capital is still it's a human capital. We're glad that it was done in Kazakhstan for Kazakhstani people. That was the most important thing. And right now, regarding the ecosystem. So if we talk about Kaspi.kz, our mission is to improve the lives of people to create innovative solutions and services. So we don't want to create ecosystem. It's not our goal. We have around 14.5 million users. There's 700 entrepreneurs. They use our services. It's just a result of how we create our services. And all these entrepreneurs, they are in our ecosystem and create value for our customers. So, speaking of ecosystems, the ecosystem itself does not give satisfaction to clients, and they follow the service that is provided by the company, and then the company starts to build everything else around it. That's how it happens with Kaspi. You create one service, clients use it, then the next service, and so on and so forth. If I talked about the marketplace, because the ecosystem, it's not only about marketplace. It has travel, payment, fintech. But the main thing is that it has all the entrepreneurs that use our services. They create added value. They become a part of the ecosystem. So this is what the clients like. So it's the services of the ecosystem and the ecosystem which is added to these services. And we were at one conference where Mikhail said that we do it for people, and as Kaspi consumers, as Hali consumers, as the advanced people, we can feel it, and it's cool that we have this convenience with this bank. So going back to these services, we would like to see how this ecosystem, cooperation between marketplace and the banks, how does it push products, transactions, and retail loans? So could you talk about these things? Thank you. Lizat, hello. So clients, the marketplace, it doesn't affect the ecosystem. Marketplace does not affect the bank, but how the bank affects marketplace, it's a different question. And the third question is how marketplace affects other businesses. So consumers, they're not looking for a bank. The times when, like in the 90s, like remember privatization coupons, when we had those, and where do I put my money, in which deposit? Now they're looking for service. We have to provide service. Then the client goes there. So he isn't faced with this challenge of choosing. So he compares different services. So it's not like it's not one company, it's many companies. So you have to improve all the time, and marketplace, it's not creating additional added like value, but it creates maybe the other way around. And it's very important that the marketplace, it has to create value for businessmen, business people. So it's a win-win strategy when everybody is winning. Everybody gets some joy from it, including the government. and having this open taxable income for the government. Kaspi is such an advanced product, we even forgot how we started. It was QR payments, cashless payments, how we went from cash payments to cashless, marketplace and banks. We all know about Kaspi Juma. So I wanted to talk about these products. So everything starts with Kaspi Gold. Kaspi Gold is the key to the whole ecosystem, the main product. Around everything else is built. The other interaction is built. It's the first iteration of the product that was launched in 2017. It created this booming growth because if you look at this long term, nothing was changing. We only had Kaspi Gold, and in those segments that were unbanned. So QR is one of the services that we were creating for the entrepreneurs, and QR here became very highly in demand technology, and we put a lot of effort into it. And all the investments that we've made in the past 5 years, about $100 million, because it has to improve all the time. Kaspi QR, it is something that currently it's a standard sort of. We open it with other participants, and we're going to move in alignment with the paradigm that was agreed with the regulators. We'll move together to improve the life of Kazakh people, including entrepreneurs. We have done that before, and this is what we were asked of by our entrepreneurs, by our clients. So we're going to do what they ask us. We're going to improve their lives. And Kaspi Juma, it's a service for entrepreneurs as well. It's a very convenient service. And Kazakh people, they like buying things on credit, on installments. So I think it's good. During Kaspi Juma, prices fall because all businessmen, they want to be at the top, in the top 3. Those who are using it, they see it. Those who buy, Kaspi Juma is a very good product. People like it, and our efficiency is like over 90 there. Net Promoter Score, NPC, so it's very high. We can talk about this separately. So let's go to banking issues, go back to that, and let's go to a different field. Lezat Arkenana, I think for the past 20 years, apartment mortgage construction have become common words for Kazakh people. Mortgage loans have become an essential part of crediting system of Kazakhstan to provide affordable housing to Kazakh people and to promote the construction boom in Kazakhstan. Lately, we've been seeing high demand for mortgage, which signals the high income of people and signals the affordability of housing. As a result of September this year, the mortgage portfolio has increased 5% and reached over 5 billion. So retail loans was 1.3 trillion, which is 17% higher versus same period last year. We continue to develop this system of savings. It's the most affordable way to buy a house. The only institution that does that, it's the Otbasi Bank. As part of the program, consumers get mortgage products on a concessional terms. So how mortgage products have affected the buying of housing? So what kind of support mechanisms maybe you have not only in Otbasi Bank but in other banks as well? The housing for population, there's a UN criteria. It's calculated as the average area for per one person in a country. So it's 24 square meters for a person, even though there is no standard, but they recommend that we need to have 30. So to reach 30 square meters per person, we have to build more. And this year, the government is planning to build 18 million square meters, and this plan is being successfully carried out. So this residential construction is one of the drivers of economic growth of our country, and it's very important to understand that the country has a high birth rate, average birth rate among Central Asian countries and among North Hemisphere countries is one of the highest. In April of 2024, Lancet Journal has published a study. They took the birth rate for 224 countries, and from 2005 to 2025 for the past 70 years, and Kazakhstan has shown very high birth rate. Especially in this report, they say the average birth rate, it's how many babies are born in a woman from 18 to 45 years of age in females, so it was more than 3. And it's interesting to see the forecast for the birth rate, which says that Kazakhstan can become in the top 26, where by 2100 it will show very average birth rate. Other countries, given the current rate, in the Western countries, one, maybe less than one, they will face the decline of birth rate, decline of population.
So when we have a very good demographic situation, then there is a demand for the residential complexes and for the mortgage. And in Kazakhstan, the interesting thing about it is that we are all the same in one panel session. All of us are colleagues. I'd like to congratulate you on the National Currency Day, and we are the only bank in Kazakhstan that has no other currency but the national KZT, National Kazakh Tenge. Well, our colleagues save money, our citizens save money in tenge, but not other currency. If during 25 years of the existence of the bank we saw different interest rates, the national refund interest rate, and how the system sustains that, saying like, come to us and save 2% per annum, and we provide 2% per annum every time, regardless of the flat rate, because we explain people that we will get the benefit not from the deposit but from the future loan when you serve it at the preferential terms, and you will save on the interest rate installments. And our business model, the one that promotes these savings, in the first session people said that the government promotes the mortgages through the national premium, but I'd like to note that there used to be only 430 billion KZT for 3 years spent from the Republican budget, and this money was transferred to the accounts of the clients. And people ask, what result did the country get? 550,000 families got loans for the total amount of 5,560,000,000,000 KZT. If the coefficient of the family is 3.9, I mean four children in one family, I think 500,000 people are living in the flats that they got. And if 430 billion we divide by these 550 families, it means that government spent 900,000 KZT per family and created such a unique system. And when all of us are in the same place in one plenary session, we need to realize that there is a conflict of business model. The fact that the commercially universal banks are dealing with the consumer loans, and the figures demonstrate the growth, especially the one of the consumer crediting. The client is the same. It is our average Kazakh citizen. And when all the tools of digitalization and marketing, as well as the commercial, the average Kazakh citizen is promoted, is incentivized to take a loan, to take an installment, to consume more. We come and tell him, no, you need to know how to save. You need to think about the need in future, like your residence, and now you need to invest, you need to put money on your saving account. It's difficult to do so. And I'd like to tell you that we are now implementing the no risk program, within which 9% per annum, with the initial installment of 25%, the families may procure the residence, and we can see the trends at the market. The first trend is that what we see is that the evaluation of the solvency is becoming more and more difficult. The volume of the debt burden statistically per client has significantly increased per client, and we received the burden of the debt burden for the banks, and it diminished the volume of the consumer loans. But we also have the sector of microfinance or organizations, and the sector rapidly increased by 1.3 billion. Again, we also have the sector of pawn shops of 250,000 again. And in the first credit bureau, if the people provide the information to KBB free of charge. So the credit story, because of their debts to pawn shops, received some minuses in the scoring model, but many people even didn't realize, even have never reflected about it. When they bring a certain thing to the pawn shop, they didn't plan to return for it. If they put a certain thing in the pawn shop, but the record in the pawn shop worsened their credit scoring. And we also see the NPL increase in the sector of microfinance organizations. The portfolio has matured because of the high interest rates, I think this portfolio will worsen. And another thing that we can see through our borrowers is that the volume of the finance scam increased in the market, and there are so many borrowers that have the bad debts for their credit history, and they prepare an application that they have become the victims of the scam, saying that this is not their borrowings and this is not what they wanted. And maybe there was gonna be an increase in the number of scam cases related to the fast promotion of the digitalization. And with the great respect, I saw an initiative from IRFR for online crediting will be subject to the freezing phase, when within 24 hours the client must be informed again and not to issue the loans. I don't really understand why not. What's the point of giving the consumer a loan in 2 to 3 minutes? What's the point of this speed? When people are talking about the online loans, people treat it with the huge respect. We digitalize it. There are many things behind. But again, as an economist, I always wonder, like, what's the point of giving 20 minutes loan that he will serve 20 years? When we were in a big congress of Жилстройсберkassa in Netherlands, the European Central Bank, they claim that they recommend such residential cashiers to make a 1 week of silence when the credit agreement, mortgage agreement is signed, and the loan will not be provided for 1 week, for a person to reflect on it and try to think and realize that he signs this mortgage for 19 to 20 years, for him to understand what's going to be his life cycle, family cycle, if he will be able to sustain this finance debt burden provided for in this contract. And the third trend, I'm finalizing my talk, is that now, along with the processes that take place in generally in the global economy, I think we need to take a closer look to the risk appetite of those banks that work in the retail sector and understand, like Razalevich mentioned in the plenary session, that it does not become significantly richer, and we need to understand the incomes structure, because if we take a look at the net savings, so the size between the crediting and the availability of the deposits of the individuals are always on the same level, but the number of depositors that save huge sums of money under higher interest at a higher interest rate, it's a much more higher rather than the people that get consumer loans with a tiny amount. Thank you very much. Okay, and now let's summarize some highlights. Okay, Жилстрой, Sberbank, how many people in the country are your clients? To date, more than 2,700,000 accounts. Okay, 2.57. Okay, what's the average profile of the clients of Жилстрой Bank? What's the per capita income and the average age of credit? The average age of getting loans is 41 years old, and 50% of all the borrowers are women. Women want to save more and think of the residents more. So we opened the educational saving accounts where we compete with the second-tier banks, and there is also the system of saving deposit accumulation. The average income is 300,000 tenge. People don't come to us with the high incomes because they can afford themselves the mortgage with other banks. Yeah, just 2+ million accounts. So the average salary is 300,000, 2% the saving interest rate. If you saved 5% mortgage, if you work at other programs, up to 9%. So the affordable residence through Жилстрой Bank, and the average duration of years you need to save is 7 years, but the minimum of saving is 3 years. So that's a very little number of those who can keep the money for 36 months. But for the portfolio is 7 years. Well, the trends that you highlighted, people with such incomes, they go for a higher level of the consumer credits. I mean, the ones who save money and then they pass through the solvency assessment and solvency scoring, there is a debt burden of 50% from their average salary. Yesterday, Darhan Sainov published an interesting statistics in the Facebook that the savings of the population is growing, and there is a myth of consumer loans. Yes, I read his article, I saw his graph, and my last point was about what Razalevich mentioned about the population income structure, which is of a pyramid nature. I mean, 3 to 4% of the population have high incomes, and they have huge deposits in the commercial banks, second-tier commercial banks, and now under this interest rate, that's a good tool for saving. They consider it investment tool, and the great majority of the population, they have low incomes, and they are in the table that form the credit portfolio. I mean, there are different groups of the population. If you compare what he's doing and if the net savings are equal, then statistically it's correct. But from the common sense of the processes, I mean, this is just the overall statistics. But Saberjan, you are not dealing with the mortgage loans. But look, well, if we turn from the banking sector to the others, and if we wrap up on this, the mortgage loans of the banks, what are the proportions and ratios of Жилстрой Bank and second-tier bank as of September 1? 53% of the loans, 53 отбасы, and 57 and 43 other second-tier banks, and they have the rate of 18, 21, 22. We survey the mortgage market, and it turns out that there are people with high income level, and they can gain a long-term mortgage loans. But I'd like to highlight and stress that Жилстрой Bank has been operating for more than 23 years, and the system and the law are working in such a way that they can create the private Жилстрой Bank. Yeah, there can be competition. Yeah, I checked out the fintech sector people, and they seem to be worried because, again, those banks are something boring. Well, let's make an offer to the private investors, because rule was 170 that the demand for private capital is 4.3 billion KZT, but given the demography and given the fact that Kazakhstan is one of the leaders among North Hemisphere in the average birth rate ratio, I think it's a good niche for the investment of private opportunities. Okay, Shalkan, let's turn to you without introduction. Over the past 3 years, we were always buzzing that the investments in growing, crypto investment is growing. So, Shalpan, a question to you. What changed in the attitudes and expectations of investors, and what kind of new trends became more visible, and how the capital market responds to such changes? Good afternoon, dear colleagues. Happy professional day, the day of national currency. Well, I believe that being part of such an important sector is the elite position, elite attitude to be there. I think most of us have a certain responsibility, because many things depend on our work, on the results of our work, and I think the prosperity of our economy, that's why it's extremely important, and I want to wish all of us every success, good luck, prosperity of the economy, stable KZT currency course, stable rates, as well as the solvent clients. Happy National Currency Day. And my talk will have to do with some background, some words like a background about myself. Okay, let's skip this slide. Okay, when we talk about the popular areas for private investments, of course, first and foremost, these are the areas that have evolved historically. The real estate, business, and these are the two pillars for their everyday life, and afterwards arise the finance system tools, which are the deposits and the securities market. And if you talk about the popularity of deposits, everything is okay. Yeah, I remember that in Soviet past era in 1990s, when you had to outreach the population, asking them to take money from their pillows, and now people understand what deposits are. The deposits perform well, and they give you the fixed income tools that are transparent and clear. For them, you have the predictable earnings, and that's more or less the same. Well, when it comes to the evolution, we have been evolving for 30 years. For now, there is a securities market. The securities market experience a more complicated situation. It's more difficult to sell our services than selling the apple juice. Why? Because our products must be well understood, must be well explored, and in order to use them, you have to have a certain level of the literacy, competency, and the risks appetite. Well, despite all those challenges related to the securities market evolution, over the past few years, we can see the exponential growth of the broker accounts. Alina was talking about 2.8 million accounts in the central depository system. I remember the figure as of November 1, 3.3 million accounts. But in here, one needs to filter this information because not all these 3.3 million accounts are active accounts, because some other accounts are uh, moveless. Like I have also some accounts in this 3.3 in State Bridge, 1 and 2 in Halik, so the Sky Bridge accounts. So the reasons are obvious. The reasons why there is an exponential growth of the broker accounts, and first and foremost, one needs to know the public initiatives that are being taken in order to involve population in the investment programs. These are the huge programs for increasing the investment literacy, IPO transaction literacy, with the broad involvement of the population. And there are so many different events to form the regulatory framework. And the most important initiative that affected the exponential growth is the initiative of our regulator for the allowance of foreign investments of the second-tier bank. Since 2022, they like jumped in this sphere, and those banks have huge client base. It's easier for them to attract a client. And yeah, I was also wondered, I read recently, in order to open up an account in Halik Bank, it took me 30 seconds. I know that in our company, at least 2 hours are needed, and if you want to be fast, or sometimes like half a day.
Вот. Очень большое
A big impact on the growth of accounts was generated by the process of digitalization that we're living in right now. First of all, digitalization, and the catalyst was the COVID, of course. Digitalization led to financial services being cheaper, and they are easier to scale. You don't have to have office space. You don't have to attract people with these beautiful offices. And so right now we have low profitability, low costs of service, and we don't need some office spaces, but at the same time, I think right now we can, for electronic onboarding, we can use biometry instruments, we can use digital signatures, and so it has made cheaper and affordable these services, a wide range of services, and attracted more investors. And the third factor, which is also very important, it's the change of generations. It's the new generation right now. We are living in an age when, instead of conservative baby boomers, in place of X generation, we have positive millennials and very conscious Zoomers, and they have a different outlook on investments. So, having analyzed the factor on technology that I've spoken about, on the slide you can see the purple field is where we are right now, and maybe closer to the middle, it's the traditional services, which is becoming more online, which goes out of the comfort of the office. We have access to platforms, and right now the whole digital market, the financial market, is going through a transformation, and this transformation is going in two directions. First transformation is aimed at reducing manual labor, at introduction of automation, CRM processes, analysis of client customer relationship. We're replacing some routine work with automation. I'm talking about the yellow square. So this is what we're going through, automation of our internal structures, internal financial structures. Looking at the blue square, we're working on the transformation that is generated by the needs of the clients. And more clients, as Sabrzhan said, who are not looking for banks, they're looking for services. So I have a similar statement that it's not the broker who has more access to instruments will win, because the access to instruments is similar for everybody, and not the one who has a great service in a great business center. No, the broker is going to win whose application is the fastest, is the friendliest, and is the convenientest. So right now we're all working on the transformation in this field to create more amenities in this field. So and so we have not only the convenience of service, but we have the range of products that the clients feel familiar with, those products that are dictated by technology. So in the green square shows the innovative level that will become the point that we want to reach. And it includes tools and platforms that will provide access, unlimited access to all markets. It will be the platforms that will use AI for investment strategy development, as well as for finding new instruments. And if we look deeper, I have more details on that. Chopin, please keep it short. So I already spoke about the public impact, government impact. It's the first IPO, it's the access to second-tier banks and the legislative framework, and the investment literacy growth. So if we go to the previous factor, which is the change of generation, and we see the differences in preferences. Conservative baby boomers and the X generation, they are the main holders of the wealth, but at the same time they have very conservative approach. Baby boomers, they like convenient office access, they like using marketplaces, trade like sales platforms. Millennials and Z, they don't care about office. They like the services that they get on their own through platforms by choosing service based on convenience. And just like baby boomers and the X axis, they have the wide choice in tools, because they have less time to save for savings. They choose less risky instruments. They look at life insurance more often, at deposits more often. And the securities market is quite understandable for them. You have fixed income there, and it's risk-free instruments, because millennials and Zs, they look at more technological instruments. Looking at the age profile of investors in Kazakhstan right now, we see the main categories, the main holders of wealth in Kazakhstan is adult generation. But when people ask us, are you afraid of competition? There are more players coming from neighboring countries, maybe because the borders are really shattered right now. And so by going through that transformation, by going through decision-making changes from young generation, we are potentially expecting more and more clients, and everybody will have enough. Right now, the wealth is concentrated with the older generation, but we see more and more engagement of the millennials in investing business, in decision making, and they are taking the different positions from junior position to senior position. So this is the summary. So based on these approaches, we can divide these into three groups. So instruments for baby boomers and X, they are classic brokerage, classical investment portfolio management and such. And X's, compared to boomers, they have the introduction of technologies. So millennials and zoomers have drastically different approaches. So through different platforms, we have robo-advising, algo trading, high-frequency trading, copy trading, social tradings. When you copy strategies of successful investors that we know in the social circle. So social trading suggests some like group trading. There is a divided investment. So when you don't have lots of money, they are good at communicating. So they do some things based on how they can easily communicate it. Maybe they can collectively buy a stock or an instrument or security. So for this generation, for whom mobile application is the continuation of a hand, for whom technology is a must-have thing, so having studied at university, they have some kind of experience in doing investments. So right now, the leaders of infrastructural organizations have to ask themselves, are we ready for this new generation? Because for these generations which are coming and replacing the conservative investor, for them, what is important to them? Technology and the limitless, borderless world. And here we have high competition level with the Western markets and with the digital markets. And I think right now we have to be one step ahead. I mean, regulators, us, and the banks, custodians, stock markets, we have to think about creating these conditions not to be able to serve to this generation. It's a really cool presentation. So, right now, who are your client at Skybridge? Baby boomers, millennial, X generation. So right now, as I said, it's the baby boomers and the X. And I can say that Skybridge is more like a boutique. We have tailor-made products which adult people are more interested in. So which brokers target millennials right now? So I think those brokers which specialize in retail, so we have ITS participants, we have Jusam Bank, Freedom Bank, so 1824 share is growing. Thank you. So we will pay attention to this trend and we'll discuss it in the hallway. We're still using the same services. Digitalization is happening in all sectors. Alek. So Shalpan did very interesting gradation. So the same rating, the same grading could be used here. So you are in charge of life insurance company. So these companies for the past 15 years, they've moved ahead as soon as the retirement funds have been moving, as soon as like mandatory retirement contributions have been made. So more and more relevant, the life insurance company becoming more popular, they allow to provide good life in the future. So as an expert in the insurance market, which products are developed in life insurance market? And as Madina has mentioned, the earthquake protection fund, and will each of us be a mandatory member of this fund? So as the topic of earthquake becomes more and more relevant, so is it possible to provide coverage for your real estate, or will be a part of the government fund, earthquake fund? So how much time do I have? I think colleagues will maybe give part of their coffee break, right? So, because we may have some questions from the audience. So, hello everyone. Congrats on the national currency anniversary. So it's great that our central bank, our agency, our association of financiers has this desire. It's really hard to gather people because you've been working for 1 year and then boom, there's a financial day. So, and it's great because apart from having this professional community around, very few people who understand what finances are in the deep sense of it. It's a really cool place where you can meet people, and you just can tell them, congrats once again. I would like to congratulate you on this anniversary. Regarding the insurance, so we talked about this at the panel discussion. Insurance market is not big in terms of share. We fight for this number each year, but sometimes we're not there yet. There are many reasons for that. So for as long as I work in insurance, I didn't know what it was at first. So I'm in conscious, like 15 years. I believe in the conscious, in voluntary way of insurance. When some unlucky majority pay for the lucky minority. So we have a very good process. 4.5 million car users, they use this civil liability, and it's a good thing because it protects the people who got into a car accident and who are not guilty. So also we have some wide package insurance, bilateral packages. Even the smallest insurance, they have maybe 3,000 than 4,000 cases for the 1,000 claims, and it's a lot. And right now, we have cooperation with National Bank developing very fast and crediting. So you could argue a lot about this, whether it's good or bad for people, that they increase the loan burden or they add pressure. But when you see a grateful eyes of people when they get these payouts if they lost a breadwinner or some accident happened, it really worth working there, because maybe during signing this agreement they don't need it, but it works really well. So it's a good thing. Very few people cover their real estate, so it's the singles which are conscious But with regards to insurance and with regard to insuring your mortgaged apartment, it works well in during earthquakes, floodings, fires. And speaking of B2C segment, but there are many people that fly, and it's included in the insurance. And there is it's a small amount actually, but if something happens, God forbid, it will work out. The life insurance, guys, you all know, you're all conscious. If you're 40 plus, think about saving for your adulthood, for your old days. You can laugh at this, but if you're 50 plus, save as twice as much, because you want to have a beautiful gray hair, having a holiday abroad, so in Turkey somewhere, and holding hands, so because it's a well-deserved old days. So you can buy these pension packages, and you can buy these simple savings. It has to do with the life savings. Yet, Oleg, tell us what to buy to live in Turkey. What do we need to buy to live in Turkey? So, which product do we need to buy and how much is it? You can transfer some of your savings to retirement annuity, retirement fund. You will be paid your pension for your whole lifetime if you live up to old days. So you can make some contribution each quarter, and then insurance company pays out during this period, but they will pay you more than you've saved, thanks to investment income that the company has made. So there are some companies that have licenses in Union Link. It has insurance and investments. We're working in this market together. We are competitors with Shalpan, but apart from having stocks and shares, you're not worried about your portfolio. You trust this with your insurance company. And this does not give life insurance. If something unexpected happens, and do you know that this policy is not shared on divorce? This policy will not be shared when divorced, during divorce, because it's an insurance policy. It's the money of the insurance company, and it's a quick liquidity for your relatives, because they don't need to wait 6 months before the will is officially in force, in full force. So I'm more positive. I'm not talking about fatalities and bad accidents and death. Yes. So we say he passed away. We don't say he died. So in a more beautiful way. So we have 43 million in a pension fund. How much is in a life insurance?
So if I'm not mistaken, more than 270 billion this year is the market of the pension annuities. I don't remember the exact amount, but indeed a lot. 870 billion or 20 trillion. Yeah, like you can choose. Yes, I think you need to catch up. Yeah, you can buy it in 45 years old. You can choose if something happens to you and then your successors will enjoy the full payment. And if you start receiving payments after 55 and the guarantee period will be given, if something happens to you, then your successors will get money after a certain period of time. Okay, you can buy pension annuity. How long have I been waiting and like convincing you? You know, uh, mortgages are growing. Can they grow from the pension annuity or some other tools? Well, what are these trends good, and what would promote it? Yeah, well, if we want to be brief, we are running out of time. What we like is that we wouldn't change the sector of insurance, and the end will be 30 years, and the company will become the life insurance company. If I wouldn't trust it, I've always trusted insurance, and now I trust even more to the life insurance. So what I can tell you about it, well, as a matter of fact, we love the way the pension market develops, and what I'm sad about, what I regret, is that people don't voluntarily buy the pension or life insurance. But it will happen, I think, because many factors, stability and profitability of people, the foreign political factors, they are formed in such a combination that um, the life is designed in such a way that we love certainty, and we wait until this certainty appears in life and we will start procuring. But the market is growing rapidly. And what about the earthquakes? So should we buy the life insurance? That's all clear that if you are living in an earthquake-prone region, it's better that you buy the life insurance and no, like property insurance. Sorry, property insurance, and every police has the life insurance, and the company buys the life insurance coverage for the policy. So any insurance company, if the earthquake happens, will never sustain such costs and payments. I think it costs 0.2%. So yes, we can open up startups here, like a small shop. Yeah, if there are earthquakes, then we have lots of calls in our country, and then people forget what kind of earthquakes they were. People relax, they enjoy their life, and they forget that they insure themselves. So the insurance is such a sector that develops as the prosperity of the population grow. You know this, the urbanization, online, everything is growing. Yeah, everything is there. Ilara Montana mentioned cool things for the market, and thanks to her work of the single insurance database, every single policy is entered in the database, and there is an operator who operates all this. And thanks to the Goskredit Bureau, we have done outstanding things. Yeah, in normal time now. So if possible, people will turn to you for further questions. I think for regular citizens, you have a very good name, State Credit Bureau or Государственное кредитное бюро, but you're working in the B2B sector, and can you explore more how your activity affects the digitalization, the analytics, and so on. Dear ladies and gentlemen, dear financiers, I would like to congratulate you on the happy National Currency Date. I wish you prosperity. A lot has been said about the liabilities, rules and responsibilities, and what colleagues were mentioning about the insurance topics. I would like to call on the responsibility from the side of all citizens when you subscribe the insurance policy. And just when you want to write this, I want that everything is transparent. We want to we want to provide you with the possibility of getting the insurance reports on the credit history and the insurance policies, and any citizen can go to eGov mobile and gain this information. I'd like the technician to launch the video, and this is the event we can proudly announce. Thank you. Thank you. Finally, we can see it free of charge in the Gov mobile. Yeah, because we are talking about the fact that we design everything for our citizens and everything is accessible. It is all gratuitous, and the government for citizens is the one-stop shop for gaining data for every citizen of the country, and that's why we approached to make everything comprehensible, simple in the real life, real-time mode. And Alina, you asked about the analytics. Today we announced our first digest, which is called the popular insurance product in the population of the Republic of Kazakhstan. Probably you have not explored it because it's a fresh one. We created it with the Insurance Association of the Republic of Kazakhstan, and all the citizens who insure themselves and the ones who don't. You can explore the numbers for every product. Our citizens get insurance policies, and you can check the number of policies in terms of the number of those who prepare them, and we also highlighted the term of the payment for a particular product. It's very important because the trust and the culture of the insurance market relies on not how many insurance policies we sell, but how this insurance payments are made, how fast the insurance market responds. And we really hope that all digital services, all digital products that are implemented and mentioned by the Karkarovich will shorten down the payment terms, and the expectations are increasing, and the insurance that we always mention in our internal meetings will increase too. So this is our first digest, and you can follow the link. You can vote for the topic of the next digest. I would like you to be as interactive as possible to choose the future topic for our review, and I hope that this is just our first undertaking, and I think it will continue. And in the next Congress, we will mention next figures, to what extent the insurance market increased and what is the frequency of selling such products, and how our citizens analyze their credit burden and to what extent they can study their credit history. And this is what we always call our people to that, and we always encourage our citizens to calculate their finances, and to understand that they're real, direct responsibility. Thank you very much. We only had 1 hour for the panel session and just 10 minutes of the break left, and just 2 questions from the audience, and then we can go for break. Colleagues, do you have questions? Then let's make a coffee break. Thanks to all.
Мадина Абылкасымова, Адалят Абдуманапова, Юлия Якубаева, Татьяна Тё, Руслан Владимиров, Марат Елибаев,
Уважаемые гости,
Dear ladies and gentlemen, dear conference attendees, that's a great pleasure for me to see all of you here at the most important panel session at this Congress. This session is dedicated to the ESG agenda in the financial sector. Over the past few years, we've done a great job in introducing the sustainable development principles in the activities of finance organizations. And today we want to take stock at what we've done to understand what kind of challenges there are in the financial and corporate sector to the introduction of the ESG in the financial sector. That's why we invited the leading experts in the ESG domain that are ready to share their experience in the sustainable development principles. Let me introduce our distinguished speakers. First and foremost, Abdumanakova Dillat Abdurrahmanova, Corporate Governance Europe and Central Asia Project Coordinator, Turkey. Our long-lasting partner, Yakubaeva Yulia Konstantinovna, Chairman of the Council for Sustainable Development and ESG at NCE Atomic, and a distinguished Tatiana Tyo, Associate Director, Financial Institutions, European Bank for Reconstruction and Development. Distinguished Ruslan Vladimirov, Chairman of the Management Board, Bank Central Credit. Lubaev Marat Talgatovich, Chairman of Management Board, Development Bank of Kazakhstan. So today we have a Financer Congress, and you know that a regular COP meeting takes place today in Baku, where the leaders of the countries were brought together to discuss the agenda for the sustainable and environmentally friendly future. We see that the trends of the environment continues in the financial sector, and ESG Global marks that the investments in ESG funds over the past 10 years increased tenfold, and now it exceeds 3.3 trillion USD, and ESG bonds exceeded 50 billion USD. So in the 20th UN Summit of UN in combating climate change, the head of our state reaffirmed the agenda of our country to achieve net zero by 2060. Kazakhstan contributes a lot to the green sustainable energy. So within the climate change, it's planned to decrease the carbon dioxide by 15% from the level of 1990s, and there is an active trade emissions for the increase of the share of the renewable energy sources. And today this share is not that high, around 46%, and we want to increase it by 55 by 2050. The finance sector was actively involved in the sustainable agenda along with our foreign partners. First and foremost, the International Finance Corporation, European Reconstruction Development Bank, the UN Development Program. We've done a great work to study and explore all current foreign standards within ESG principles in the market. A huge work has been done to take stock of those standards and the guidelines for the finance market. were elaborated, and they reflect all the international standards that were adopted at the global level in terms of the environmental agenda. First and foremost, it is about the unleashing the ESG criterion information, and the second key guideline is the recommendation of dealing with social and economic risks for bank and other organizations, which is so-called the SRM guidelines. And next year, we want to approve the carbon dioxide footprint of the banking engagement and CRM management, and to introduce it on a permanent basis in the bank management. We also see a positive impact from the measures taken in terms of the green funding. In addition to changing the activities of the finance banks, finance organizations themselves, there is increasingly more bank endeavors, and there was the IX 28 ESG obligations were issued for 46 billion KZT, and the leaders here are our stock exchange. 26 billion were issued in AX, and we hope that we will see the growth of the ESG bonds. We also see the support measures, and it's extremely important that the government within the business roadmap provided the subsidies for the issues of such bonds, and the stock exchange provided for diminished listing of such bonds. 14 banks have integrated their ESG principles in their activity, and 79 companies in the country included the ESG sections in their reports, including 18 actors of the finance sector. So today we want to enable our distinguished panelists to talk about the global trends and the trends they face as you introduce this agenda. And the first question to ask will be to Madame Adelat Maratovna with regard so given the fact that you set the requirements to ESG risk management at the corporate level today, the corporate management is the key topic, and in terms of the corporate management, the banking is the leader in the corporate sector of the Republic of Kazakhstan. Along with that, we set new requirements to the reporting on disclosing ESG risks in the reporting. So what are the key issues must be raised by the board of directors in terms of the ESG strategy monitoring? Who should lead and guide this process? Should it be the board of directors, or should it be the board of governance of the companies themselves? So what's the position? Thank you very much, Maria Rasulna. Dear colleagues and panelists, that's a great pleasure for me that today we celebrate the Happy Financer Day, and the fruitful discussions take place within this event. And the corporate matters were discussed at the panel, at the plenary session itself. And these three letters, E, S, and G, are important because these letters remain the foundation for the introduction of the new strategic thinking and new strategic mindset. The most important here is that the role of the financiers and the bankers has increasingly changed, and I just want to tell you that ESG is a new concept that becomes a fundamental part of the traditional finance. I want to congratulate you on this day, and I'd like to wish that every of us, every financier in Kazakhstan would better understand this topic, would be inspired and act and inspire his team or her team and his or her clients. Marina Rasulovna, you've just highlighted the global trends, the regional trends that take place from the opportunities and threats perspectives. And the role of the board of directors is the key, because the tone is given from the top, and this is the motto we always mention. Unless the management is involved, unless the ESG strategy and the business model is in place, you cannot expect any efficient results or success. That is the reason why For us to set the scenes of the discussion, I'd like to tell you what we can see in practice is that the topic itself, the idea of ESG itself, is wrongly understood. As a matter of fact, ESG is about business. That's an important, I think, the most important aspect I'd like to highlight and insist is that ESG is about the business and ESG is about finance. Within our methodology of International Finance Corporation, as well as other experts, consider ESG from three key positions: the risks, the impacts, and opportunities. When it comes to risks, the risks, it is about how we defend ourselves from the social risk, including the corporate management risks. In here, we need to ensure the building of this foundation upon which all other things will be based. And now impact, the way we impact on the environment, on the society, and this is what we need to understand. These are the areas that banks and finance organizations have been dealing a long time, including in social aspects, social corporate responsibility, some philanthropy projects, and now the environmental aspect is particularly and increasingly important. And the third is the opportunity, and that's an important aspect, and we need to understand that ESG is something that changes our business model. And today within the plenary session, a lot has been said that Timur Muratovich mentioned that the rule of the banks is changing and we need to take the leading position in here, and it means that we need to realize our role as the entity that may impact on the change of the business model, and we realize, we understand that the way we build our business strategy and the business model is critical for us to be in line with the new regulations imposed by the regulator and the investors, the international partners.
И плюс это то,
And it's how we see ourselves as part of the strategy. To continue the topic of the role of the board of directors, unfortunately, we still see, I mean, the regional context, the Central Asia and abroad, we see the cases when there are good declarations, sometimes declarations from the banks in terms of ESG goals, but it still remains at the operational level. And during the discussions on board of directors, they are discussed formally, maybe, or not discussed at all. And it's not the right approach, because board of directors, they set the tone. Board of directors, it's the experts. We've mentioned a lot about that. It's the experts that can share their opinion clearly, openly, and it's important that these experts are experts in ESG, or they should know how they can use it to realize, implement their business strategy. So it's important that the discussions as part of the board of directors happen, that they're productive, effective, and it should be expressed in certain metrics, in certain KPIs, and in certain roadmaps. So, if I may, I would like to add that we talk a lot about ESG, but the positive dynamics, it's already happening. If you look at Kazakhstan, if you look at other countries, these dynamics is happening, and we're happy about this. But dear colleagues, how can ESG change business model? And there can be many reasons for that. We're happy how financial regulator, Madina Yarasilna, it's a big achievement of Agency for Regulation and Development of the financial market. So the regulator is doing a lot, is doing its homework for the whole financial sector of Kazakhstan. We're getting ready for important changes which are already happening outside of Kazakhstan, which affect our business. And these changes, they are expected to be tougher and to be more dynamic. And these two guidelines for information disclosure, ESG, and the management of environmental risks, at this point, they are one of the key ones. Why? because for disclosure information, dear colleagues, we see how many standards there are have been released for the past years, and the world is tired of it. So there was a decision, let's make something comprehensive, all-encompassing, and let's speak one language. Let's not confuse each other. And a couple years ago, as part of the standards of Financial Center of Astana, we have comparable metrics to collect the information for sustainable development. So this is important what we already got in Kazakhstan. This came into our origin, and we expect that the achievement, the execution of these requirements will be mandatory. So when we talk with the International Center Astana, they sometimes correct us. They say that please don't say disclosure of non-financial information. No, it's actually financial information related to sustainable development. So ASG is about finances, ESG is about money, it's about how we tie this into our strategy. And secondly, it's regarding the assessment of this risk management system, management of ecological and social risks. And it's important to embrace it, that environmental and social risks, they are comparable to credit risks. For investment organizations, they are comparable to investment risks. And it's really a self-proclaimed truth. So we want to change the world for the better, for our children and grandchildren, but right now we want to do it seriously because it affects our business, it affects our risks. So in this case, I would like to thank the agency because a huge work was done, and we wait for when the market is going to introduce these documents, and we will see the changes that will be happening. Thank you. Thank you very much, Adalat. These guidelines were developed with the cooperation of our international partners. So special thanks to you. So we said that we have 28 publications of ESG on KASE, but if we look, mostly it's our foreign institutions, they publish it, they place it in Eurasian Bank of Development, Damu Fund, Development Bank of Kazakhstan published a lot, Отбасы Bank, microfinancial organization, but if we look at the corporate sector, so that they can publish their bonds, green bonds, place these bonds, their share is very small. And it happens because we created very favorable conditions for green bond placements compared to regular bonds. I'd like to thank Damu Fund for keeping that low rate at 6% for social and green bonds. They decreased listing requirements. So what happens in the corporate sector? When banks introduce their green agenda, and there will be certain indicators, they say let's enhance the amount of green loans, green financing, so there will be requirements to the corporate sector. So do you have a strategy of sustainable development? Do you have ESG principles implemented in your activities? And the leading role should be with Atomican. And my opinion is that we need to develop similar document for corporate sector and make it voluntary first and then mandatory, so that everyone speaks the same language. And so when banks do it, when banks do work with these bonds, they give it to companies, but there are different companies in terms of ESG governance. So what Atomican is doing right now to promote ESG agenda. Thank you very much, Madina Rasilana. So I'd like to thank everyone. I'd like to congratulate everybody on this holiday, and you cannot be an ex-financier. These people, they are always creative, they are filled with fire, hot, and so I hope that it stays this way. I hope that our sector is the driver. I hope that you always have prosperity and peace in your houses. So before we start talking about the sustainable development and new impetus, so I will get to Atomican, but I will continue on what Adalat has said. So I will start not with corporate governance. I will start with climate. 2023 was the hottest year in history, and we see the consequences of it. And these consequences, they are becoming more and more evident. It's just for this year. Just recently, Spain, and before that was Emirates, in our March floods. So this is the risks related to water, because 80% of catastrophes are related with water. It says that the climate agenda that is tied into ESG has to be followed, because the risks which occur, it's easier to prevent them than to fight with the consequences. I mean, economically it's clear. And so for the past 2 years, those companies which are followers of sustainable development, they get out of the shadow, they start showing the results that they've collected for the past 10-15 years. For example, Apple company, I really highly recommend it. They've released a video on how Mother Nature comes to their board of directors and how they acted out, how they report to her in terms of sustainable development. And also, Apple is an active player in carbon neutral companies. So recently, carbon neutral is not trendy. Carbon negative, that's what is popular. And there are new instruments, and companies declare these things, and they move their things to digitalization and through all their departments, all their functions, all their partners. So ESG is a lot about digitalization. I go to different SDG forums. We are part of Sustainable Alliance, and it's very popular to talk about the studies done by global digital players. So global player Gartner did a study, and 69% look at sustainable development as one of the driver growth in 2024. In the beginning of the year, when they developed their square, they put sustainable development in one square as AI. So the growth pace is huge and the significance is huge. So they break down the services that could be built around sustainable development and what CEO sees as important. It's the products and services, it's the stakeholder engagement in the decarbonization, marketing, uh, energy renewable. So it's a new economy that will develop, and you as bankers, you have to participate in this, because what is financial sector? It's the mirror of the economy. Also, important trend is that ESG agenda has the engagement of community of consumers. So consciousness in the young segment, it it signals that they are interested in how products were made, where they're made of, and how they can affect the environment. So that's why more and more products come with the passport of the carbon footprint. So when we go to European market, we talk about the carbon tax since from next year. And what is a carbon footprint? It's the impact of your product with quotas on carbon contributions in the country that you're working. So you have to calculate your product. What it is made of. Who has started to calculate? No one. But what Adalat has said in terms of the standards. Previously, it was difficult to calculate. We said that there was certain excuse for certain players that haven't started calculating their carbon footprint because there were some details in the rating agencies, there were some details in some other agencies in the protocols of digital footprints, in a carbon footprint. So right now there are two red standards for CSRD. It's the mandatory requirement, standard for sustainable development for European countries, and IFRS has to be in red. I don't know why it's orange. So it has to be mandatory from 2025. These standards will be obligatory for those who are using Financial Center Astana. So we haven't joined yet, so it's the next question about the reason about. So what companies will be facing for not following these sustainable development? So Europe, which has entered there earlier and which has unanimous standards, which has date, which has certain analytics on this topic, they will be fines, penalties, sanctions. So they don't. Eco marketing is banned. So eco-friendly is banned. Clean, climate neutral. So if you don't have proof for that, so if you don't have reports, if you just declare, so you're doing greenwashing. We have the same examples in the Kazakh market. We had a conference in June for sustainable trends where we discussed that the penalties will be high, at least 4% from the annual revenues. So greenwashing, the investigation of greenwashing, in that the community participate in that. So you could apply, you could go to court, and there are some lawsuits on Lufthansa and some big companies which are not following something according to regulator. In terms of importance for Kazakhstan, whether we need to get into that agenda, whether we need to pick it up. So we're working with European countries. They are very involved in this agenda. China is very involved in this agenda. The United States, maybe with the coming of Trump, maybe something will change, but they're still very involved in this agenda. But so if we want to go into investments, into expert, we have to listen. And we're happy that finance regulator is moving in this direction, because banks and the financial sector, they have to be 1-2 steps ahead. So we understand how many people we have in the audience right now. So we need incentives in awareness. When we hear ESG, people have different associations. Some think it's environment, some think it's carbon footprint, some think it's about women. So some think it's about women, that's why they came. So we have high resource efficiency. Actually, we do not count the energy efficiency of our buildings, we do not count energy efficiency of our city, we do not even count carbon footprint in Kazakhstan. We do it once every 3 years. Many years ago we thought it was a big win. Right now we think it's a catastrophe, and they're trying to make up for it. But still it's the way it is. We don't have unanimous center for monitoring of carbon footprint. We don't have the common standard of collection of data. We don't have unified center. We don't have monitoring or introduction of sustainable technologies in production. Nobody knows what's sustainable technology and products except for Damu. But if there is social taxonomy, it will be great. that is lying somewhere in the underground of the, like in the background of the economy. A few years back, we met with the quasi sector, with development institution, with the bankers. We attracted all the people from the state agency. Thanks for Association of Financiers of Kazakhstan to participate in that. So we met and we thought in which direction we need to go. We went in different direction. So we had 3 image events, 3 big forums, where we brought interesting cases, and we found out that we have 2 companies that don't say they're sustainable, but they make huge things. We discovered that in Turkestan region there is a subsidiary branch of Kazakhstan that does waste sorting in 18 construction sites. So they have huge experience in that. And we looked at the incentives. We understand that there are some limitations in budget. There would be some resistance from regulation. So we suggest that we go with incentives or ratings, competitions, contests, awareness, popularization of cases, games, so engagement at different levels. So understanding of this agenda will get the ball rolling, and then in terms of the financing of green projects, we need to look at the pilot cases. For example, they have higher preparedness, they have higher need, and they have higher expectation and higher results, and the rules of the game. So we are happy with the cooperation with the regulator in the financial sector. We understand that this will affect manufacturing industry, it will affect environmental sector, and we're working in 18 platforms to develop a roadmap for strategy of low carbon strategy. So we understand that the regulation will still occur, and I don't want to say that we don't want to say what that countries haven't done nothing in 10 years, but still will show it. So they will have a multiplier of sustainable development. There will be a chain of sustainable development where sustainable supplier works with a sustainable contractor. So that's the way it is for now. Thank you.
Очень много вопросов хотелось бы вам задать.
Indeed, there are so many questions we want to ask you, so let's give a chance to all the speakers to report, and then we will turn to the Q&A session. We've been working a lot with the EBRD, because EBRD does not only mean Kazakhstan but Central Asia. They keep the agenda in the whole region. They see all the problems that may have regional nature dependent on the water and other risks. In this regard, could you please share with us the way you evaluate the efforts in the Central Asian region, what EBRD is doing, and what Kazakhstan could do in order to contribute to the global agenda? Well, thank you very much, Madina. I would also like to join to the words of congratulations and wish all the colleagues every success. And coming back to your question, I'd like to give the following answer with the particular focus to the environmental part of the ESG. Colleagues mentioned that it's a broad topic. It covers many issues, and the environmental component will be the core in my answer. And today we face a diverse environmental crisis, and if we deal with the challenges of the environmental matters, but the climate is one of the broad circle of the issues, and the opponents of this broad circle, they are interrelated with each other, and it leads to some negative results. In this slide, you can see the ongoing situation in the world for 9 parameters that we are defined by the Stockholm Center of the Sustainability. Every of these parameters impacts our environment, our lifestyle, and our society. Each of these parameters has these safety borders through which we cannot pass, but not to areas, and even sometimes we are more involved rather than only dealing with the environment. And if you talk about the broader range of topics, it is the aerosol pollution with the particles at lower level. But when it comes to Central Asia and cities of Central Asia, these are the current issues, and we see the way this topic is impacted. So according to experts, the air pollution is 10 billion USD worth losses. So in the screen you can see the opportunities that take place in the sectors where the critical green technologies are used, the production of the electricity through solar and wind, and because of the low level but of the past 10 to 20 years, the growth in this sector is exponential and very active, and it has to do not only with the particular states and regions, but also in different corners of the world. It is the commonplace in China, Europe, and the USA. According to the International Environmental Agency, 2.3 trillion USD were aimed at the environment, and 1.7 were aimed at the green energy. It means that for every dollar invested in the projects with the use of the fossil fuels, $1.7 are spent for the funding of the state-of-art technologies. And the same thing we find in the finance markets. And the emission of green obligations at a recordly high level globally. And it is also expected that they will grow by 15% upon the results of the first half 2024. And the volume of the green bonds will increase 1 trillion USD this year alone. So I'd like to highlight the role of Kazakhstan and the positive trend. And the companies and the commercial banks in our countries emitted more than 27 ESG bonds from 2021 for 1.3 trillion USD. All of us know that the Kazakhstan development concept and transition to a green economy provides the fact that the country will generate 50% of the electricity using renewable and alternative energy sources. And that's an ambitious goal, given the fact that in 2022 this level was at 10%. In general, it means that the production of green energy, the funding of the projects in this sphere will require huge efforts at many levels. That's why the support of the state, the support of the market, the support of the investors will be critical. Given this context, the international finance organizations may help to support and to develop IT and green funding. So EBRD is the largest investor not only in Central Asia but also in Kazakhstan. So the green funding is very important. ESG promotion is very important. So EBRD has undertaken to put everything aligned with the UN Sustainable Development Goals, and we also undertook not to track but to rule out the projects that may negatively impact the environment and send half of the investments to sustain the green projects. Three key components in Kazakhstan. We supported 332 projects for the amount of 10 billion USD, and these are the projects in the sustainable energy, sustainable infrastructure, corporate segment, and finance sector. Understanding the green area, we created a special green program for the funding of the green projects, and because we believe that it should take place in various sectors of the economy, including in small, medium enterprises. So this program is 150 million USD worth, and we work with different banks and microfinance institutions to make this funding available. to make it for the SMEs, for the households, to provide for the efficient investments in the resources and renewable energy sources. So in 2021, EBRD funded 40% of all the capacities. So the technical support is very important. Partners in order to reveal, monitor the green projects. So they also provide the support of our partnership institutions in order to promote their knowledge in this sphere. So another important aspect is we're dealing with regulators. It's because we believe that availability of the regulatory environment will promote. So these ambitious goals that I mentioned can be attainable. So that's why we work very closely with the National Bank and with the agencies and key stakeholders just to support different initiatives in this sphere. So that is the reason why EBRD keeps on investing in the ESG, and that's an extremely important point for us. And that's why if you have an interest or if you have a wish to interact in the green energy projects, we are ready to use. The EBRD turned out to be a leader in the renewable energy sources. The regional projects, it provides for the huge technical support. So the continuation and active support of the EBRD and other international organizations are very important for the introduction of green energy in Kazakhstan. We are the second-tier bank, so we invited the Central Credit Bank, and this is for a reason because Alexander Vladimirovich has gained the highest ESG rating in Kazakhstan. It was in September. So this is the ESG must-have rating for every finance organization. And could you tell us, please, how did you manage to reach such a high rating? So I'd like to thank you particularly. So I didn't expect that ESG agenda will develop this way in our country. This is done under our moderation, and it has gained a particular importance. So ESG is becoming very important, and I hope that these panel sessions will further promote this agenda. And we can also see today that globally the huge attention is paid to the sustainable development, and a huge delegation in Yerevan, as well as so many countries came. They testified to what extent it's very important in the world. This is not just a fashionable trend that depends on particular politicians. That's an important process. So I think the beginning of such a transformation of the ESG principles introduction for us, it represented a roadmap that the agency introduced in 2023, and it promoted the actions, encouraging actions on the finance sector, and the roadmap that regulator used represented the bank transformation here. So we were really nice supported by the board of directors, and they gave a huge priority to this project. And based on this, we created our own roadmap for the ESG, for the introduction of ESG principles and the bank strategy. And we prepared a number of steps that every organization should pass in their activity. So we also founded a body for the institutional development. We also created the board of directors, the committee, and people were trained in ESG principles, and they gained certificates. It gave a very good effect. And as it was mentioned earlier, a lot depends on the management, the way they put this question. If ESG is only related to the ESG funding is one thing, but if it is the development of our society, contribution of our development, the development of the country itself is different when such a strategic objective is given to the development itself. So what else, what we have done? Well, as far as you know, before the roadmap was created, we invited consultants who demonstrated us at what level we are and our maturity level, and this report allowed us to develop our own bank's development roadmap. Well, and here we introduced the concept of green office step by step with the principles of responsible funding that helped us a lot, and the regulator has principles to be introduced, and this is what we've done. This is our homework, which is 85% coincides with our purposes, and we published the first sustainable development report that was certified by Big Four auditors, and as an interim report is that the ESG assessment was awarded with 60 points that allow us to be in top 10% of the banks with such rating globally. And this is not only our merit, but this is the low start merit, and this is the fighting with ourselves. And I think all players that will go into this assessment will have good points, and then by doing so, we can demonstrate a good dynamics with the low start, and we can make an investment contribution. Thanks to our partner, thanks to our finance institutions with whom we promote the green funding, also provided us with the positive effect, and we have good plans for the future. It was a question about the green bonds. We also have such plans with us, but I would like to highlight that the banks cannot go faster than the market. That's why it's really important together with Atomic Can and the large clients and SMEs to follow the ESG principles if we want to promote those principles tomorrow. Yes, and that is it from my side. Yes, we have some things to be proud of. Top 10 IT banks with such an evaluation for us as the regulator is great. I'm proud that we have the banks like this. So Marat Algatovich, a huge work is being done in the renewable energy sources and in the green agenda of the development institutes and the companies that are under Bank Bank's umbrella. You know, you have a huge portfolio of projects, and if you check the issuance of bonds at KZ and AIX, and you were the first to issue such bonds, is there an advantage of issuing such bonds in the local market, in the international market? What's the advantage of attracting these bonds? What does the demand look like, and what work you are doing, and how do you use these funds? What kind of projects they are aimed at? They are directed at. Could you elaborate about it more? Dear friends, dear colleagues, I would also like to join to the words of congratulation with regard to the happy National Currency Day, happy day of financer. That's a brilliant festive day to discuss the ongoing problems, challenges, and opportunities of what we can do together. And before answering your question, I'd like to tell you that our panel session is called the ESG Agenda in the Finance Sector, Expectations, Results and Forecasts. If we talk about the environmental component, our expectations are such that we need to attain carbon neutrality by 2050, and Kazakhstan, like many countries of the world, undersigned Paris Agreement, and we have committed certain obligations that Kazakhstan will be carbon neutral by 2030, and within the framework of the strategy of the net zero carbon neutrality, we need to attract 600 billion USD to implement this program. I think this is about expectations, and when it comes to forecasts, the realities as such as the share of the green projects, the share of the renewable energy sources projects is not that high, and we discussed that too, and we can see that there is a clear understanding that the bankable funding structure of the renewable energy sources in the project since 2015, over 9 years, we increased the renewable energy sources up to 6%. We can see the pipeline of small and big projects that we will increase the share of the renewable energy sources in the electricity generation, and this is not true, unfortunately, for other industries like the agricultural sector, transport, power supply, and the huge scope of work is to be done in this domain. And given the fact that all of us are financiers, the matter of financing is something that we need to consider as our response. So when it comes to the Development Bank of Kazakhstan, I'd like to tell you the following thing, that no matter how people want to beautify or make this ESG word fashionable, the Development Bank of Kazakhstan considers every single product from the perspective of the environmental friendliness and corporate terms, and we realize if the project is ESG driven, then the environmental, social, and other corporate matters are less prominent here. That's why we are all bankers in here. We really love this project and we want to see this project. That's why we are interested in such projects. And what we did, we introduced the practice when the ESG rating is introduced. And when the project is in line with the ESG rating, we provide the project with a discount, and we promote the creation of new sustainable projects with good corporate practice. And I think this is our rule, because being as the Development Institute, our purpose is to promote such practices, such principles, not only in the quasi-state sector, but also on the part of the borrowers. So we hold this work such as ESG rating. We publish the reporting if the RGRI, we calculate scope 1, scope 2, scope 3 emissions, how many debut bonds of a certified bonds initiative were issued. We issued the first bonds both on the local and international markets, and we see a huge demand from investors' side in such papers, and we believe that that's a huge opportunity for us. That's a great work for us, how we can achieve net zero carbon neutrality, how much investments we can attract. But I see huge opportunities both for the businesses and banks to promote these initiatives. What I would also like to highlight is that when it comes to the questions what kind of projects we are funding, a good example is that 15 renewable energy sources projects were funded, solar, hydro power plant, biogas projects were also funded. We also fund the projects of the transmission power grids and the buses projects, green buses, the garbage waste disposal plants, and those projects are provided, and we actively understand that the budget money is going down, and we are turning to the market relationship, and we are searching for green money, and we discuss it with the Green Climate Fund, Climate Investment Fund, Adaptation Fund, of how to attract this money to the economy. These are the conceptual funds that can be aimed at the project. A good program was in the European Construction and Development Bank for the attraction of money from the Green Climate Fund, 110 billion USD for the development of the renewable energy sources, and we can see a huge number of the renewable energy sources. And now the question is how to attract the money in other sectors. We perfectly realize that there are certain risks of the carbon tax and the competition of the country. So thanks to these ideas, a certain upgrading of other sectors should take place.
We've been doing lots of work, and we should not translate it to client. So these standards, these principles, at the end of the day, we want business to transform and to be more actively involved in this area. So thank you very much, Marat Algevich. We don't have much time. We just have 5 minutes before the end of the session. I just had one question to all the speakers. Maybe it would be nice to ask somebody if they have if we have question from the audience. So we have the experts here. So does anybody want to ask a question about ESG agenda in corporate sector and financial sector? We also have ESG rating. Unfortunately, the speaker doesn't have the microphone. It's hard to make out what he's saying. Sorry, the speaker doesn't have the mic. So you mean there is low demand from institutionalized investors for green bonds? I see that Kazakhstan Finance, you've placed 20 billion tenge. You've listed 20 billion tenge. We really hoped that ESG rating will help expand that range of financial institutions that are working with us. We haven't seen it yet, but we want to know if you, representatives of big banks, do you see any promise in that? Do you see any future in that? So, if I may, I think ESG rating is not a cure for everything. I think it's one of the ways to attract some soft loans or some concessional money. There's some credit banking. There are other principles that would give the full picture on the attraction of money. So I would like to share our experience when we listed the first green bonds in the international capital markets, and we attracted 100 billion. So the first, it's about sanctions, how DBK is seen, and then ESG, they asking, what are you doing in environmental, in social arenas. And institutionalized investors, they look deeper into what projects are financed, how they are financed. So it's a very important topic that all investors need looking for the answers to. So when you look to capital market, you say green bonds, sustainable bonds, you take responsibility, because colleagues were talking about greenwashing, and we have to understand that by taking this responsibility, we have to do this. We have to fulfill them, because otherwise it will have negative consequences. Thank you. It's a very good question, actually. Does anybody want to comment? I will just add, thank you very much, Konstantin. It's a very good question. We get this asked a lot. I will talk about EFC. We use ESG rating a lot, and because it brings us to a discussion of different methodologies for ESG. And of course, there are many methodologies. Maybe the world is a little confused right now. So when investor comes in, IFC, and our methodology is very deep, and we look at risks for our investments and in terms of opportunities. So right now, rating is seen more as a reputational thing, but for companies, for financial institutions, it's a very important indicator, because you get feedback, you understand where you are. But speaking of B2B relationship, here we will consider our methodology. We will not just take rating, we'll look at the methodologies as well. So if there are no questions from the audience, I'd like to ask the major question. So what conditions could we create so that more companies of the real sector would go to the fund market, to the stock market? But we would like to see more companies in the stock market with green social bonds. So at the COP, they approved green taxonomy. Social taxonomy will soon be adopted in Kazakhstan. What else do we need to do? State agencies, regulators, business. Thank you, Madina Rasilovna. It's a very important issue. So the colleagues who have been through their journey from the beginning of the ESG to the rating, so it's a new philosophy. The company has to be ready, has to be prepared. They have to define their sustainable development goals. They have to know what they want to do around it. And even if you chose different SDGs in industry, in the manufacturing industry, and at school, your report will be different. Because for the manufacturing industry, you will need to take metrics related to manufacturing security, to the labor safety, to the labor conditions. But for school, you will have to talk about the green syllabus and about green efficient campus, energy efficient campus. And you can have identical SDGs, but you'll build around it your strategy. Around it, you will build a team, and you will understand your roadmap. So when we say that the company goes to the stock market, it has to conform to the requirements of the green taxonomy that we have today and the requirements of DAMU subsidies. So DAMU subsidizes if it's only issued by MSB. MSB doesn't have good corporate structure. They don't have accounting base. By MSB, I mean medium and small sized businesses. So let's allow the big ones, and the big ones will put the requirements to the smaller ones, and it will be a chain reaction. So in relation to those who are ready to look at the medium-sized businesses, so we need to optimize a list of documents. It's excessive, very big list of documents, so even to get certain rating, companies have to provide less documents than to get a subsidy. So there has to be a report on sustainable development that would show what the company is doing. There should be a strategy, and there should be some corporate things like anti-corruption code. So if these four things you have and a business plan, then the company can be considered as green, because then there will be verification whether it follows its intended target, whether it's achieved its goal. So regarding how company, for example, we say school, it's ESG, but it's not green. It's a social one, but we don't have social taxonomies. So what should it be? Renewable energy? Well, it's not relevant. So there's small dissonance. We have to smoothen it out. So on this platform, we could collect certain services for ESG so that the companies could see what financial institutions give 1% discount, which give subsidies, somebody gives something else. So in terms of disclosure, I think we are ready to do this disclosure rating. Maybe they can digitalize it so you can have access to it. So, and then you can see whether it's greenwashing, but whether somebody can see the data. So that's a comprehensive work that has to be done. In 23, together with stock market, with AFC and the Region Fund, it's a fund where we fund some projects. There was a contest for the corporation, for the company from the real economy sector. Those that were selected, they gave them this consultation package. They prepared them for the emitting of green obligations. So I would like to add to what Yulia has said. First of all, it's instruments of knowledge. So we build it for the financial sector, and it's not an easy task. So we see that there's some resistance, there's some support. We see great results. For corporations, it's not a long way. Their methodology is different there. The environmental social risk management, it's for real sector. It's one thing, for non-real sector, it's a different. So it's a question of how we convey this information, of how this instrument is available for helping, for support, and then we have to bring it to the most important thing. So right now, investors and the market participants, they are becoming more demanding in terms of ESG and some green bonds in terms of corporations. The green bonds, it's not a new thing. They've been issued for many decades. So to get into the market and to say that you release green bonds, it's not enough. Investors will ask questions like, what's the general idea? What's the framework of this bank with regards to switching to this green bond? So we have to be clear on definitions. If you say that as a company, as a bank, you want to be carbon neutral by 2030, so this could mean a few things. This could mean that if you're a manufacturing company, you're not using coal, or you're planning to use only renewable energy sources, or if we talk about banks, it's the goal that a bank sets to decrease the share or maybe avoid any projects which have a damaging impact to the environment. So the recommendation would be that if you go to this market, if you plan to do something, if you plan to promote your ESG strategy and the green investments, please be clear. It's important to have clear definitions. It's important to have clear parameters. on what success is. So it's important to have a clear action plan, clear timelines, like by when you have to do it, which steps have to be taken. So several times we've heard the greenwashing, this word, and it happens a lot because it's a popular topic, and investors, they should like give money left and right, but actually the requirements are getting higher. So the recommendation is that you should use already established notion of green. They are different for different sectors, so that's why use it. And lastly, I think it's a very tough work. It's a big task. It's a big ambition, and it requires lots of effort. Manly efforts, singular efforts, collective efforts. There are many partners which are focused on this. They're willing to support in this. So if you have any plans, please consider cooperation with international organizations on this. Yeah, you said it well. So let's sum up our session. Of course, we could go on for hours talking about this topic. It's very interesting for our country. Thank you very much for your contribution that you do in your field. We see that it's important to strengthen coordination. Financial sector is the flagman, is at the forefront. So I'm proud that how our financial organization, our development institution, they are at the forefront in ESG rating and in risk management. So it's important to have more interaction with the corporate sector. So it's a big role of Atamikian. We have to interact with the state agencies, Ministry of National Economy, Ministry of Economy, Energy. I see that financial sector is ready to finance these sectors. It understands well, it knows how to estimate the risk, how to attract green funding, how to provide green funding. And in this case, we need more coordination with the government, with the state agencies, and with us in financial sector. You see that we've made a lot of progress. There are big tasks ahead of us, big plans ahead of us. I'd like to thank all our partners, our international partners. I'd like to wish you success in this very important issues for our country.